Welcome to our next edition of Investor Roundtable. There's the three of us hanging around here. This is Chris Perry, the founder of EQUITY.GURU. Down is below me is Vishal Tura, our technical master. What's that?
Did you say blow me?
Well, maybe. You'll never know. You know, it's kind of like hiding those frames within a film. Okay, so anyway, we're here talking about an interesting prospect that we've found in a very depressed sector, as it should be, because it got the crap, blown out of it recently because it was just way overvalued. And what are we talking about? Legal cannabis, of course.
We're talking about cannabis. We haven't talked about cannabis forever.
No, we stayed the hell away from it because it was basically a minefield for investment at that point in time. The heyday in 2018, absolutely great, hit its peak. Chris called it. 4 days later, it went into the toilet, as it should have done. The evaluations were insane. It was just crazy. I don't know. Maybe it was us that sort of called out that the emperor had no clothes, and people finally realized that.
I did say at the time there were three companies that were going to take their time in falling that you could still invest in, and those three companies did continue taking off for another couple of weeks, and then they went down too.
Yep, see, there you go.
History proves us to be correct.
Absolutely. But today we're going to talk about a really interesting company that has just come out. It's founder-led, made by or led by some of the biggest icons within the legal cannabis sector. It's called the BC Bud Co. And that's BCBC, trading on the Canadian Securities Exchange. It's led by CEO Brayden Sutton, which is a household name when it comes to legal cannabis. The guy's been in it for about 20 years approximately, knows what he's doing, and is teamed up with other such heavyweights as Mark Lustig, if anybody remembers him, for making big sales on big companies. And then you also got Josh Taylor rounding out that crew. This is a really good franchise in terms of where the industry has headed and where it is right now. They're capitalizing on the downturn in a certain sense and doing business right compared to where it was done. Well, what business was done before there was no business. So let's step over really quickly to Chris, who, as I said, called the whole marijuana movement and then called its downfall. What do you think of the sector right now, and what do you think of BC Bud Company?
Well, let's take it back a little bit. It was about 2014 where I spotted a news release from a company called Satori Resources that was a mining company at the time. And, I just used to go through all the news releases and rewrite stuff at Stockhouse back in the day. And I saw this news release that said, we are looking for strategic alternatives in the, opportunities, not strategic alternatives, opportunities in the mining, environmental, recreational, medical spaces. And we will have more information soon. And I looked at this news release and was like, what? Like, if they'd said they were looking for strategic opportunities, that all makes sense, because when you've got strategic opportunities time, you're basically saying, we're done with what we're doing, we're looking for something else. But this was, we're looking for opportunities in like 6 different sectors that didn't make any sense put together. So I looked at where this company was based. It was Flin Flon, Manitoba, of all places. There's nothing in Flin Flon but rock and meth. So it's like, this is weird. But then I remembered that in Flin Flon, when the Canadian government used to grow medical weed, the Americans used to fly over it with crop dusters and weed killer and destroy the crop. So the government headed underground and started using old mine shafts in and around Flin Flon to grow cannabis.
That's crazy.
And so I was like, could this company be thinking about turning its gold mine into cannabis? And so I put out a story about it, and next day they changed their ticker symbol to BUD. And everything, the entire market went bonkers from that point forward. I made my living writing about almost nothing but cannabis for the next 2 years. And even though my boss at that point was saying, nah, stop writing about this cannabis stuff, it's never going to be anything. It's a flash in the pan, cut it out. I kept going, and before long, half of the money that Stockhouse was making was coming out of cannabis. So my business, when I left, was cannabis based, right? I was the cannabis guy. People looked every day at what I was saying about the cannabis business. And at that point, there were hundreds of companies raising money, hand over fist, and shooting the moon. But in 2018, it was really clear there was a fall coming. The stock prices were like that. But government was about to legalize everything, which, you buy the rumor, you sell the news. So that was going to be a problem. And it was going to be pretty clear that the rules were going to be very restrictive and that the government was going to want to keep its hand on the scale and in the pocket of every company in the cannabis space. So I basically said at VRIC, sell everything. Like, I don't care what the ticker is. I don't care what you think the long-term prospects are. It will never be as good as it is right here. This is the point where you get off the carousel and you learn what it's like to be rich. And a small number of people said that makes sense and started selling. And that, I think that probably ended up gaining some real momentum, because there are a lot of people around that were like, obviously, like triple and quadruple profits in 2 months is not sustainable. So that was the point where it all went horribly wrong. Now it's risen a couple of times and then fallen away again in the time since. So true believers keep getting honeydicked into buying back into the market because they love cannabis. They want to support the industry. And it's stupid. It's a dumb thing to do. If you listen to me and you stayed out, you have saved about 95% of your money and hopefully got into other things. But the industry can't be shit forever. And there will eventually be, even with restrictive rules, even with the government controlling a lot of distribution, even with the inability to market one's company in any sort of positive way, point to, good times, getting high, not allowed. This will fix your back, not allowed. This is a color on a label, not allowed. Like, everything is just like, you cannot build your business. And also you got to compete against the black market and also give the government a bunch of taxes and rely on them to do the actual retail sales. It's a mess. So why would I talk about any cannabis company in that space right now? Imagine, if you would, the Beatles got back together and went on tour. Now, I don't want to say that anyone is the Beatles of cannabis right now, but imagine if, any big band from the 70s and 80s got back together and just said, okay, let's go once again. Oh. Brayden Sutton, who was pivotal at the beginnings of the cannabis movement in terms of, was there at the start of Supreme, which became 7 Acres, which sold to a Canopy for $440 million. Josh Taylor, we were talking about earlier, also part of that group. Mark Lustig, who with some input from myself and from Brayden Sutton, started Canna Royalty back in the day, which became Origin House, and eventually sold to Cresco Labs for $1 billion. $1 billion. There ain't been many takeovers at any of that scale in the cannabis market anywhere. Lustig has the biggest win of anyone in the business, and used that to then create Trichome and IMC. He's been involved in Planet 13 in Nevada. He's on the board or advising dozens of biotech companies and tech companies, and anything to do with SIM. Lustig is going to be there in the background. But the one thing that's really important about all the Lustig deals is nobody gets fucked. No retailer gets left behind. He's not a pump and dump guy. He's built his reputation and his fortune on being a reliable guy who can bring in the money when required, who can advise people and make sure they're in the right direction, puts good teams together, and doesn't get sucked down into the usual house street pump and dump rubbish. Of anyone in the cannabis sector who's managed to improve their reputation since they got involved, he's about the only guy I can think of. Everybody else has got dragged into taking too much money, borrowing too much money, having business models that don't quite work. You can take any big cannabis company you like in Canada and tell me if anyone involved has improved their reputation over the last 4 years by being involved in that company. Lustig's the only guy. So you got Lustig, Sutton, you got Taylor there. That three saying, let's get the band back together, and take a really small micro cap and go from there with a responsible business model that's, I would describe as Canna royalty light. Man, I think at a $3 million market cap, well, it was 3 million last week. Then we announced that we were getting involved. It's now 4 million. Sorry about that. You got to be quick, but still a $4 million market cap. You look at what they're doing and what they've already acquired. It is cheap, dirt cheap. It is multiples cheap. So that if this company gets just a little bit of lift, you're going to make money on the current share price. They're not going out and blurting their story all over Hell's Half Acre. They're not spending millions of dollars going and getting every marketing deal they can. What they want to do is do what Norton Singhaven has been doing at Avant Brands, which is take a small footprint, smart people, work hard, put your runs on the board, show people you're real, and the share price will move up from there with just a little bit of explanation and exposure from us. I think it's a great model. If you look at their website, you see that there is a bunch of different SKUs where they've got legacy cannabis people, the people that really know their business, that they've brought in, and they're using their company as basically a sales network and a marketing network. The key, and I'm sorry for taking all this time, but I love this deal. The key to it, beyond the good jockeys on the horse, the reasonable market entry point where people can still make money, and the quality SKUs that they've got that are starting to go across the country. The key to this whole thing is the simplest damn thing, and it's something that has been out there available to anybody since cannabis came back, and that is the brand. In a place where you're not allowed to market yourself, where every big cannabis company has like 30 different micro brands that they hope will catch a wave and get interesting, different labels and different packaging and different product names. Really, it all comes down to people go to the dispensary, they see what's cheap, and they buy that. Right? This is why prices have compressed. The one marketing brand that has existed since before the legal market that had any sort of cachet was BC Bud. Right? When it was all black market, what did you buy? You got BC Bud. You didn't get that hot North Carolina shit. You got the BC stuff, right? In California, they were smoking BC stuff because BC was where it was traditionally the best product. So to call this the BC Bud Corp, you're not betraying any copyrights. Anyone could have called themselves BC Bud, and a couple of people in the early stages kind of went that route. But the BC Bud Corp, you put that on the shelf next to any brand in Canada right now. The layman, the casual user, the grandma who's never been into a dispensary in her life will see BC Bud and think of that as quality. And if the product is quality and goes with that, then they will be back for more. It is the only Canadian brand from the starting point that is better than every other brand has managed to build over the last 5 years. Like, to me, this is such a layup that I don't even know what to say about it beyond that. But I will say this is the first company in like 5 years in the cannabis market that we have agreed to represent. There have been others that have come along and said, hey, you know what? Here's a check. I'm not going to sell my audience down the river for a quick check. I want to be here for 25 years. That model has worked well for us to this point. It's how we managed to still look our audience in the eye and be listened to and trusted, is we've never sold them out. Our entire business was built around cannabis when I said to everybody to sell everything that they had that was cannabis related. We had to rebuild EQUITY.GURU from scratch, find new ways to do things, new audiences. People hated us when we said sell all your cannabis. People mocked us when cannabis started bouncing back off the lows, only for it to get dragged down again. I know I'm on a rant here, but stay with me. For me to say any cannabis company is worth buying into in Canada right now is a big deal. And the only two companies that I'm aware of where, one, they're small enough, two, they have a strong enough management team, three, the products are good enough, and four, the brand is respected enough, Avant and BC Bud. There's plenty of people in Avant already Nobody knows BCBC. So that's the ticker symbol. I would advise people to have a look at it real hard, because I don't think that this is going to be a $4 million company for long.
Absolutely. I agree with Chris in terms of one, the way or the sector is at and why it got there.
Yeah.
And also that BC Bud presents a growth opportunity that's not insanely ridiculous. And when I say that, I mean, early on in the industry, everybody was saying they're going to grow enough pot to sell to the Earth's population plus 9 billion. And we were all expected to believe that was the case. And quite honestly, those people that smoke marijuana smoke marijuana. It's not very likely that we're going to build a whole new demographic out of it. It's just that's what it is. And those companies portrayed a way different, wildly inaccurate story and basically hooped investors right, left, and center. BC Bud is a company that has its head on its shoulders. These guys have seen what the market is, they know what it can do, and they know where they're going to go, and they get there rather than just sort of put out press releases of how much bud they're growing. So, like them. I'm going to pass this on to Vishal because he's our technical expert, and I want to find out just how you feel about BC Bud Go.
Yeah. So I think, Chris covered the fundamentals perfectly. Obviously, he's an expert when it comes to this sector. For me, I want to give you guys a bit of like a technical, look out here, what I am seeing. And I was quite surprised, actually, because I haven't looked at marijuana, the marijuana sector for quite some time. And, personally, when I look at charts, I do like to look for these sort of beat up sectors just because, generally, according to market structure, nothing goes down forever, nothing goes up forever. They sort of move in these waves. And I think investor money, or you can even call it maybe institutional money, will look for these deals, look for these beat up sectors, look for what's cheap out there. And, I'm looking at a lot of these charts here of, I did look at some specific companies, but I just decided to throw them all in ETFs here. So PODX, which is the Global X Cannabis ETF, you're going to notice that all these charts look very similar, right? Where they've had these big pops back a couple of years ago, and they've all just been drifting downwards. All of them have made basically new record lows and have begun now to reverse. I don't want to say it's a big reversal just yet because there's still, certain sort of levels that I want to see taken out. But once again, we are seeing sort of these bottoming patterns. And I say that once again, just because in all these charts, we've had these periods where it looked like, the cannabis sector was bottoming, but instead we never really had that breakout to take us higher, perhaps due to some, fundamental reasons. I remember, there's all that government talks about the U.S. government and all that kind of stuff back in the day, but we just never had those breakouts when we had, very nice reversal patterns. So we have something here on PODX called a cup and handle reversal pattern. Again, new record lows. We had a bounce from that. We've now closed above my moving average, which generally is a sign that that downtrend is about to be over. And we are testing a resistance zone here. So keep this in mind, PODX, if I look at MSOS, we have the exact sort of similar pattern, very, very long downtrend, new record lows recently. And now the stock is just beginning to range here, which again could mean found a bottom. The sector that is, beat up and not loved is now finding, I guess, some investor money, and perhaps we could be in a reversal. So there's MSOS. And then on the Canadian side of things, HMMJ, which very similar to the PODX setup there with a bit of a cup and handle pattern there. But again, record lows, printed record lows, just a few, what was that in 2023? Just December 29th, 2022, just before the end of 2022. And again, we're back above my moving average. We have a bit of a cup and handle type pattern here performing. So, perhaps this could be it. We are in that period where maybe these things that look cheap are about to break out and reverse, which would mean, this would be a great opportunity to look for these beat up, cannabis stocks. But as Chris mentioned, you want to look for the good companies there, and he listed two. One is BC Bud. I remember just last week, Galen told me, hey, take a look at the chart for BC Bud. Tell me what you think. And I was like, whoa, this is something I want to write about, because that's quite a pattern there that we have on BC Bud, which is known as an inverse head and shoulders pattern, which is probably the most popular and very, I would say, high probability reversal pattern that is out there when it comes to trading. And the key is it has to appear, in a downtrend, which obviously we have here. We have a downtrend, and now we have that pattern. So it generally means that the market is going from lower highs and lower lows, which is basically the skeleton that composes a downtrend. And it's not doing that anymore. And it's created its first higher low and higher high, which is usually what composes or makes up an uptrend. So the question is here now, we have that first higher low, higher high. We have our inverse head and shoulder pattern. Everything, and a lot of, again, trading and I guess market timing, you can call it, is basically probability based. But the probabilities here are very high that we are set here for a reversal. And BC Bud looks good. Like, you have that pattern. And I've drawn out also a downtrend line just to emphasize the point of lower highs and lower lows. But that downtrend has also been broken, and we actually had a retest, seeing buyers step in at that broken trend line. So generally, whenever you see breakouts, price will tend to pull back, which sort of scares a few people, but it just provides an opportunity for those who are, I guess, looking at the technicals and looking at these kind of market structures to buy on that retest. And BC Bud actually did see buyers at that retest. So the zone I'm looking at here from a technical perspective now is the 10-cent zone, which is the neckline up the inverse head and shoulder pattern. And you can see on the, what day is that? On Friday, February 3rd, we actually had quite a nice pop, a big move, and it did actually still close 33% for the day, but we hit highs of 11.5 cents, but we just couldn't close above that 10-cent level. So I'd be watching that in the days here to come. I was looking at the volume profile as well, and volume is quite decent, right? We have days where we see quite a lot of volume. On that Friday, actually, we had 128,500 shares traded. So I'm going to keep an eye on this for sure. Again, a sector which I haven't paid too much attention to recently, but the charts are now showing these sort of reversal patterns. But I have to say, what I'm seeing here on BC Bud, BCBC is quite exciting. I think there's a very good high probability here of a reversal, and it's ticking a lot of the boxes that I look for.
And there you go. Well, okay, very quickly, going to pass it around very quickly. We're going to talk about what we would throw against this company in terms of investment. We guys got $7,500 each. I managed to find it. I'm giving it to
Inflation
you.
adjusted, right? So.
Exactly. So where are you going to exactly what are you going to do with it? Are you going to put it all in? What's happening? Chris, tell me.
I got one thing to say to you. Cannabis. Decaf, dark chocolate covered coffee beans, sourced from local coffee roasters.
Yeah.
With cannabis chocolate around.
Wow.
That's the first thing that caught my eye too. I'm like, right. I gotta try some of this.
So novel product, but they're dealing with solventless solutions. They're using habitat to process 40% of their harvest into concentrates for the hardcore users. That's a big deal. And I'm a beverage guy, right? Like if I can have a cherry soda at 11 o'clock at night and sleep like a baby, then I'm gonna, and rather than smoking or do anything like that. So these guys are working with craft breweries to put together a small batch beer-like infused beverages, like novel products. And they've got a few of those on the brand partnerships already. Black Rose Organics that they're using for the canna beans, Dewsbury Farms for dried flour. They're basically, there was a business model way back of that a few people tried, which was, let's round up the guys that have been doing this for 25 years, the little brands that have a following on YouTube and locally, and give them access to a bigger market. That failed always on the bigger market side, right? Because the guys that were trying to do those roll-ups didn't have the heft to be able to penetrate the distribution system. Mark Lustig has the heft. If this company needs money to get over a lip, Lustig has the money and has the people who work with him and trust him and have made billions with him to come and bring the money. What this company is looking to do is to not get ahead of its skis. Every time it has an advance in some way, growing the company, growing the SKUs, growing the distribution, it's letting it settle before going ahead and saying, let's borrow $20 million and go do more. They're just building a quiet little machine that, admittedly, over the last year, you look at its stock price, it's been a slow slide, right? Admittedly, as with every other cannabis company.
Exactly.
But what they were doing in that year was saying, watch us. Just go out there and watch us. Go to the dispensary, find our products, try our products, see what you think. Look at what we're acquiring and how we're acquiring it. Look at how we're growing distribution, and then make your call. They didn't come out a year ago and say, hey, here we are, the all singing, all dancing cannabis troupe. They just quietly built a product that I think is really interesting. If I've got 5K to invest, and I do, I'm using that 5K today, this morning, to go out and start buying BCBC. At $4 million market cap, a reasonably decent sized investor can take a significant stake in this company right now and have a meaningful impact on the share price and help it build momentum to a place where that significant stake in 6 months, 12 months can be life-changing amounts. Anyone who wished that they could go back to 2015 and buy in when all the market caps were at $1 million and people were saying that's crazy, this is your opportunity, right? The thing that Lustig does that I really love is when he brings companies to market, he doesn't bring them at a premium. He doesn't come out and say, I'm using this as an exit, as a profit-making event, and y'all can take it from here and suck eggs. He comes out at a place where everybody can make some upside. The investor can make upside, the management team are invested and can make upside, and he can make upside. The deal guys make upside. These deals are not heavy paper burning facilities, you know. They're not places where the deal guys get rich and everybody gets screwed. The reputation is everything for all of these guys. They've never fucked anyone out of a deal. And this, to me, is an opportunity for everyone on the side of good to make good money going forward. Now, are there guarantees about that? Of course not. But the risk element on a cannabis company right now is, can they raise money when they inevitably lose money and need to replace it? One, these guys financially, pretty good place. Two, yes, they can replace that money, raise money if they need to, because they got one of the biggest swinging dicks in the cannabis industry worldwide in Mark Lustig. Like, I don't know, man. Like, the guy has demonstrated his value to a whole lot of different companies and investors many times over. That, to me, is the sort of commodity that you can't purchase and you can't market into existence. You're either that guy who has helped make a lot of people rich, or you're not. There's very few of them, and one of them is involved in this. So I'm all in.
All right, there we go. Ding, ding, ding. How about you, Vishal? You got $5,000. Where's it going?
5K or 7,000?
We're going to go with 5K right now.
Okay, we're saying 5. Okay, all right. Yeah, so the way I would approach this is, combining the fundamentals and technicals. The fundamentals that Chris mentioned, I think it warrants an entry here. So the way I would play this is I would put half my money in now on this, the fundamental side of things. We have this reversal pattern and everything playing out. I would then just, again, mention that breakout that I talked about above 10 cents. And I think once you get that, I would throw in the rest of my money, because that officially sets up the higher lows and higher highs. And then you just ride that technical wave backed by the solid fundamentals there. So 2,500 in now, and then 2,500 on that break above 10 there.
Oh, there you go. And the reason we went from 75 to 5K is because I wanted some money to invest. Screw you guys. So I'm going to dump 5K in myself. I like where this is at. It's an interesting proposition in terms of breakout possibility, as Vishal pointed out. I don't mind getting in a little early. Vishal is playing the conservative edge on that, which is just fine. And if that's your bend, go for it, Ben. That's what you should be doing. So there you go. That's what we feel about BC Bud Co., that familiar name, run by familiar names. That would be Brayden Sutton as the CEO. Then you've got heavyweights Mark Lustig and Josh Taylor rounding out the crew. They trade on the Canadian Securities Exchange under BCBC. So if you're interested, you should check them out. Now, we have been very effusive and complimentary. And yes, that is a sign of what we think is quality, but you should do your own due diligence. Please take a look into their books and their performance and talk to an investment professional before you make any kind of decision that will change your portfolio. We're here to be your support, not to tell you what to do. All right. Well, that's it for us this week.
I should say,
for this show.
Just before we go,
yeah.
I just bought a few grand's worth of stock.
Well, there you go. In the interest of being transparent.
I'm making a pretty solid case, so I thought
you should back it up. I like
We're gonna get that breakout today.
Yeah. We ain't messing about here at Equity Guru.
Right?
Yeah. Well, there you go. We are going to see you very soon on another edition of Investor Roundtable. That's it for me. I'm Galen. Hello, bye-bye. And then we got Chris Perry, who is also the founder of Equity Guru. Hello, goodbye. And Vishal Tura, our technical expert. We'll see you next time on Investor Roundtable.